If you're someone who thinks self-care is only allowed after you take care of all the other responsibilities you have to take care of, stay tuned. This podcast is for you.
Hey friends, it's Heather.
It's Hope.
And it's Heidi. And this is Finding Our Way Through. On today's podcast episode, we'll be talking more about the concept of self-care.
Self-care. Wow. Give me an S. Give me an E. Give me an L. Give me an F.
Give me a C-A-R-E.
What do you
Self-care,
get?
self-care,
Wow.
are we?
Wow. Self-care. Woo.
Hey. Wow. Reminds me of our menopause podcast.
M-E-N-O.
Give me an M-E-N-O-P-A-U-S-E. Wow. You guys are really excited, sounds like, about this topic today, huh?
Well, it's an important topic,
extremely,
right?
Yep.
Well, there you
Gotta
have
take
it.
care of
One of the
ourselves.
most important topics.
Case in point.
Can't
Yes,
take care of
exactly.
yourself. Can't take care of anybody else now, can you?
Well, yes. That's always the challenge, isn't it? Right?
Well
Because
said.
a lot of times we are taking care of everybody but ourselves. So for those of you in our listening community, you know we've mentioned this term in our last few podcasts when we've been talking about career path navigation and, of course, that work-life balance that we strive to try to find. Now, today, we're going to start with a statement. And here it is. You can't pour from an empty cup, but must fill your own cup first. Now, sisters, when you think about that statement, what does it mean to you?
Well, I think Heather likely just alluded to it. But I think it really means that you've got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So, if you're personally running on empty, you can't go too far.
Like no gas in the car?
No
Exactly.
gas in the tank.
No gas in the tank. So just, make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can also give to others. That's what I would say that means, Heidi.
And
Awesome,
Hyde,
okay.
I would say that the
You guys-
statement
You both sound so
quite
sarcastic.
literally is a metaphor.
Okay.
And I love a good metaphor.
Well, we
Yes,
do
you
too. I
do.
can't wait to hear this one. Heather.
Yep. Well, I was just going to say that it's really, to Hope's point, it's a metaphor that's used to emphasize the importance of self-care and self-nurturing. So
Drum
as you
roll.
guys,
Drum
drum
roll.
roll. I mean,
Mhm.
again, it just suggests that if you don't care for yourself first, you're not going to have the energy or the resources or really.
But
Here comes my laughing.
I'm
The
waiting
emotional capacity to care for others.
Okay. Wow.
That was good, Heather.
That's some real
I
wisdom
like
there.
emotional capacity. Yeah.
Was there a metaphor coming or?
No, but it's like Calgon take me away moment.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you mean my metaphor? No, you're.
Yeah.
I was just saying that literally what you asked us is a metaphor. But if you would like a metaphor, a rose between two thorns. How about that one?
No, I'm talking
thought
about
you were gonna start-
metaphor, like
Start your
if you don't have
songwriting.
like gas in the tank, right? The car's not going to run. Like, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So, all right. Well, anyway, okay. For us, I guess, as women and breadwinners and caregivers and sisters and friends, neighbors, colleagues, community members, we're often pouring energy, effort, time into so many people, but how much time are we pouring into ourselves, right?
Aren't we all?
Yeah. And
Aren't
back
we
to
all?
the car metaphor,
I'm
right?
exhausted just because you listed that. Everything that we are. Women, breadwinners, caregivers, sisters, friends.
Was that off the cuff?
Tiring.
Did you go?
Was that off the cuff?
Did you go off script on that?
I did. Are you proud of me?
So proud.
We both are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I appreciate what you both shared. So yeah, if we need to fill our cup before we pour some out, what does filling our cup mean, right? It's this concept of self-care. So now, since we've been kind of talking about it and what that statement actually sort of meant to you guys, let's define what self-care actually is. Hev, you want to give it a go?
Sure, Hyde. And I mean, I guess it sounds funny, right? Like, is this a trick question kind of thing? But again, literally, it means taking care of yourself. And are you ready? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for it? Just like Taylor says, it's promoting your well-being across many domains.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess
Hope,
I
what about
would
you?
I would further that. I mean, it does sound like a trick question, but obviously, I mean, I consider self-care to be anything I do to take care of myself personally. So things like physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, intellectual fitness, among other things. But for me, the physical and mental aspects of my life are critical, because I think without these, that over time, quality of life can be impacted. And what I mean
Oh,
by
God,
that
yeah.
is, physically being unable to move, or cognitively, not being able to function, which again, have a pretty significant impact on ability, as we age. And so I really, I just believe that it's the things that we do every day and the attitudes that we have about our well-being, that move us toward promoting and maintaining what we're calling self-care, our personal health and overall human development.
Yeah. And I think it's laughing the way we just did.
Exactly.
Right. Just
Such a
like
great example of self-care.
laughter is good medicine, but
It's
yeah.
the best self-care that I have done in years. What about you guys?
Well, it's
Thank
part
goodness
of
for
my
the podcast.
it's part of my self-care.
It makes me laugh for hours every week.
It's part of self-care,
yeah.
most definitely.
Yeah, it's not so extreme. Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing you guys say is it's really just about enhancing our well-being and participating in those certain activities and practices on a regular basis, which is key, right? That focus on stress reduction, and how our focus on stress reduction can lead to quieting activated nervous systems, right?
Yeah, and laughter is such an important part of that, right? I mean, it can de-stress and quiet the nervous system.
Yeah, and I think too, it's recognizing that like activities and practices that I participate in may be different than yours, Hope, or yours, Heather. That they're specific to my interests, my preferences, the things that I enjoy, that may be quite different than anyone else's. So, yeah, I think it's just also recognizing our brains and bodies are interconnected. Like I just said, stress takes a major toll on all of us. And so, because of that, we try to care for ourselves in a way that honors all we ask our bodies and brains to do for us on a daily basis.
And it is a lot, isn't it?
It is. We ask our bodies and brains to do a heck of a lot, especially in the busy culture that we live in.
Yeah.
It can be very overwhelming for I know us and a lot of other people. So,
Yep.
Which is why self-care, which is why self-care it's hard, it's challenging at times.
Yeah.
And you go through cycles, different times in life.
And I know we mentioned this in our podcasts, just how challenging it can be to find the time to actually, put in the work required to care for self. But all right, well, so now that you guys kind of talked a little bit about what self-care is, what is it not?
well, that's a good question.
Do you want to start, Hyde?
Yeah. Well, I want people to hear this, right? Like, because I think that because of the culture we live in that's so busy, we operate off to-do lists often. And so
Mhm.
what self-care is not is it is not about adding to your to-do list.
The
That's a
honeydew
good,
list?
that's a really good statement. That makes a lot of sense, right? Because sometimes it does feel like you're adding things to the to-do list.
Yeah, I think people feel like it's just one more thing to get done. Like, let me just write
Check
in
it off.
self-care, another thing that I have to accomplish. But no, it's about setting time aside for self to decompress, to refuel, to rejuvenate, to reset so that the things on the to-do list can actually get done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's
I
what I would say is not. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would add that, I don't view self-care as an emergency response plan. I think a lot of people may tend to do that when things feel overwhelming. And so, when you're on the edge of potential burnout, it's easy to automatically just say, I need to do something. I need that, quick fix immediately.
Yeah.
But it's really about creating behaviors and healthy habits to care for and nurture yourself. So, it's not a one-time, one-day occurrence. It's really an ongoing effort to care for yourself. Have
Yeah. I
anything to
mean,
add?
I just wanted to say, Hope, that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, it's important that you just said that, like, it's not an emergency response plan. Like, in order for us to not get to a place where we need an emergency response,
Right.
right? It's
That's a
it's
great point.
fighting to sort of stay away from being ever
Needing.
in that space. So I love that you said that. What about you, Had? Didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, not interrupting at all, Hyde. And I think, really one of the most valid things is that it's not a one-time event, right? It's again not something you do once in a while. And I think for me, what it's not is that it's not about being selfish, right?
Yeah, that's so
Because
important for our listeners to hear.
yeah, it's really easy to feel selfish when you're taking time for yourself and not giving your time to somebody else. But it's really about being a good steward of self, and of the time that you need, and then the time you take to really nourish your mind and nourish your heart and nourish your soul, right? And again, I think it's important that you consistently prioritize your well-being. It's like, to Hope's point, it's got to be incorporated into your daily routine. That's what I
Yeah.
would say.
And Heidi, I think too, to something you said as well, because Heather, I completely agree with the statement that you just made about, it's not about being selfish, but it's also, trying to figure out what things are really important to each person individually, and
Yep.
kind of, again, like trying to continually try to do those things or incorporate them into your overall routine, so that it doesn't feel like it's just being added to that to-do list.
Yeah, I think what you guys are saying are great points. All right, well, so what have you done personally to take care of yourself, right? Like, and I guess in talking about how you've navigated, right, self-care, finding your way through to self-care, if you will. Maybe some of what you share, guys, might resonate with some of our listeners, in terms of things they're doing, or could be suggestive of activities or practices, that listeners, might consider doing. I um, I often think of, I know you guys are Pelotoners, as am
Mm-hmm.
I.
Yeah, go Peloton.
And shout out to Dennis Morton. He always says, "I make suggestions and you make decisions." So
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good quote, though.
hopefully, as we talk about these things, they'll either be suggestions, for our listeners as they kind of decide whether or not they'll, um, incorporate them into some kind of practice, or they might already be doing them to begin with. So, Had, maybe you want to start with how, you know, you're caring for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Hyde, it's really an interesting question, right? And because I think if I sort of look at my life before I had children versus post having children. I think, before I became a parent, I was really good with self-care. I think it's a lot easier for folks to take time for themselves when they don't have others to care for, right? And so, I was very focused on eating healthy foods and exercising regularly, etc. But I think since I've become a parent, if I'm being honest, I really have not prioritized me, right? I've really prioritized sort of everyone around me. And, in several podcasts now, we've talked about, my work environment, right? And long work hours. And, I always felt that time, I was kind of home, was time for my family again, and not myself. And it goes back to the comment I made about, it not being selfish, right? I think for a good majority of my life, it felt selfish. So again, I think my self-care or me time over the last several years has really only included a combination of taking walks or using the Peloton, when I can, and really using my commuting time to listen to, audiobooks or podcasts or music, right? Nutrition and sort of prioritizing exercise, hanging out with friends have really sort of fallen to the wayside for me, for many years, as I've tried to, find again that work life balance that we've talked about. So I think, in sort of navigating sort of this next act, in my life and our lives, I am focused on prioritizing health, and healthy nutrition, and obviously being more conscious of what I'm putting into my body. We've talked about water, right? Like drinking lots of water and how important that is.
Yes.
You know a lot about water, right?
For our body. We could talk about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And also exercise, right? And again, it's also a focus on self is, becoming really sort of regular about annual checkups. You guys, we've talked about that in the past, right?
Mhm.
Getting annual physicals and getting, annual mammograms, skin checks with the dermatologists. Um, Effectively, you have to take part in your life, and it's prioritizing these things, and then again, making time for friends. Again, prioritizing friends, right? Friends and family at the end of the day are really what matter most. So that is what I would say. I don't know, Hopi or Heidi, if you'd like to say something about how you've maintained self-care.
Heidi, I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah, sounds good.
I would say I haven't been perfect by any means, because I think, as I look back at my life, post kids, self-care, to your point, Heather, did get a lot harder, but I do think that I've tried. There's been this sort of connective string through life for me with self-care. And so I would say over the years, I've honestly tried to eat well, so healthy nutrition. Um, I have been a pescatarian for probably the last 3 decades, so I don't eat red meat or white meat. And so it really means that I eat a lot of fish, veggies, fruit, eggs. I do try to exercise routinely. We talked a little bit about Peloton, and we'll talk in a minute. I haven't really been able to run in the past few years, just because I had, a health issue and a hip replacement. But certainly, lots of walking, lots of biking, um, drinking lots of water, trying to get a good amount of sleep. I do practice yoga routinely. And, while I don't necessarily meditate, I do a lot of deep breathing, especially when I feel stressed. I think it just is derived from the yoga breathing that I've done historically through the years. Whenever I feel stressed, I really just, I put my fingers under my chin and lift my arms up and take a nice deep breath, and it definitely calms down my nervous system. I also really love to read. And so I read books pretty consistently, and I usually wind down at night with a book. I'll read books on the weekends and stuff. And I would say, other than that, I have really fallen down in the areas of like, I would say spiritual, right? Like I sometimes find myself like wanting to go back to church, but haven't kind of gotten there yet. So like you, Heather, you say you're looking to prioritize certain things for self-care. I think for me, I'm probably looking to prioritize some other things as well, because I just think that, all aspects of self-care, physical, mental, intellectual, spiritual, they're really important through life. But I think that, again, like I'm going back to the physical and mental being super important, especially as we age, because, as we all have experienced, the body starts to break down, as we are sort of on the backslide of that mountain. So, yeah,
Act
so
3.
that's what I've said. Yeah, I've just have been, really trying to eat well and exercise and, be mindful through the years. Heidi, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what you said resonates with me. And, in part, I think because I've spent more time at home after having kids, I had more flexibility in my schedule to prioritize doing things that were important to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
that would be exercising really. So, like, ever since I can remember, I've been moving my body any way I can, whether it's running. I did that for almost daily for like 30 years. And
Mm-hmm.
as I started to get older, I realized I want to do something that's more non-impact bearing, to be
Yeah, that
kinder
makes
to
sense.
my joints and my bones. And so got a Peloton um, in 2019, I guess. I've had it for quite a while
Is
before
that
COVID.
pre-COVID?
Yeah,
Pre-COVID. Heather, it was pre-COVID.
it was
It was
pre-COVID.
pre-COVID. It wasn't
Yes,
post-COVID.
for all of our
Well,
listeners.
COVID was responsible for the, remarkable share price increase in Peloton.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And this is totally aside, but I know
Absolutely.
Peloton is struggling right now.
They are struggling right
They are
now,
struggling.
and they are not our sponsor,
No,
Yes,
they are
exactly.
not. But perhaps they
But we
should consider
all,
being
Yes.
our sponsor.
but
right,
we all
but
love
we
their
all,
product.
yeah, we all are Peloton.
We're all part of the flock. We
all,
Peloton.
And we're talking about
part of the
bikes,
flock.
Peloton bikes, not treadmills.
I have a Peloton treadmill.
Yes. Oh,
Oh,
I
you
didn't know
do?
that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess, I use my Peloton bike as often as I can. And again, I shout out to the app too. I think
Mm-hmm.
the meditations on there and some of the yoga practices are really great.
Yeah.
If anybody
Also, the
is,
personal training stuff is really good too.
yeah, I mean,
Ryan
it's
has
just
started using that.
overall, it's really, I think they're doing a great job. I just hope that they survive.
Mhm.
But hope, like you mentioned, yoga. I mean, yoga's been a practice that I've participated in on again and off again. I was pretty active with the practice before COVID and then kind of got out of the habit
Mhm.
just because, studios shut down.
Yeah.
And I like to do it when I'm doing it with a group of people. I have a
Mhm.
hard time kind of
It's more
doing it.
motivating.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
motivating. And then like in January, I just started getting back into the practice and so I'm enjoying hot yoga every Friday evening for the most part. And the plus is that Todd goes with me. So as empty nesters, that's something that we're enjoying having in common.
Bonding. You're
That's so
bonding
fun.
through
That's
yoga.
so fun, though.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. And then we get
You can
dinner
look
at
forward to
Kava
it together.
afterwards. So
Have to look for those bonds.
look for those
Yeah.
opportunities.
Things you can do together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and also too, just with self care. I mean, he feels a ton of stress in his job right now, and I always feel stressed with the work that I do as a
Of course.
therapist. So it's been good. Acupuncture again is something that I started after I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Um, I really thoroughly believe in the great benefit of Eastern medicine and health
Mhm.
practices
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
the focus on the body as energy. So acupuncture can, obviously do that, right? Make sure the flow of energy is as it should be in the body. Meditation is something that I've been trying to do. I have a hard time quieting my mind and staying focused on the intention that I set at the start of the practice.
Mhm.
Like if I'm doing a gratitude meditation, I think what's hard for me is that I'm not disciplined enough yet to keep doing it until it becomes easier for me to sit in silence
Mhm.
without what people call like monkey mind, right? Like the mind is just too busy to quiet.
Exactly.
But I'm trying, like I keep trying. So I'm hoping that ultimate would be something that I can work my way to. Yeah, but outside of that, like I've tried to eat a healthy diet for decades. I try to eat lots of vegetables and fruits. I eat poultry occasionally and fish occasionally. So I'm not a pescatarian or a vegetarian. I don't eat red meat or pork though. I try to drink lots of water, like you guys mentioned. I went to drinking decaf tea for a while and then sort of missed the taste of coffee. So I started drinking decaffeinated coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that recently I've been getting caffeinated coffee, not all the time, but periodically. And I've like sort of as a pick me up, which I just need to eat an apple or, do some jumping jacks or something because
Instead of milk.
what I realized is that it just really has a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
That I think I wanted to see how different my body felt when I was drinking caffeine.
Without it, yeah.
And it's like I'm jittery when
Yep.
I'm drinking it again. My heart doesn't in any way feel quiet. Like I just feel like kind of tense and
Mm-hmm.
agitated. So anyway, I'm going back to decaf coffee and tea only. The thing that's been really super important for me in regard to my self-care is my quiet time. So that just means spending time with God in the morning, whether it's like reading scripture and writing in my journal.
Mm-hmm.
That has been the best practice for me over the past 30 years. I try always to pray, although that I'm never perfect in that. But that time with God does prepare my heart, my mind, and my soul for the day that, whatever lies ahead for my day. And I find if I am like rushed in the morning and haven't set that time aside, like I have to be at the office really early, I do find some way to connect to God, whether it's listening to music on my way to work or listening to my Bible plan on the Bible app, similar to what you said, Heather, about listening to podcasts and stuff. I try to connect to God because really I know I need the connection. Just knowing me, it quiets my heart. It gets me focused on what I need to remember about who God is and what he does for me that I can't do for myself.
And what's really important in life.
Yeah. And I'm reminded often of God everywhere, right? And like I let him help me see him in all things, which points me to this practice of gratitude that I've been, participating in for a really long time. The other thing that I think has been helpful too is I have a set time with a few women. They come to my office on Wednesday and we talk about things spiritual, things we're struggling with. Just a time to like just be open and honest about what's going on in our lives and opportunity just to feel supported and encouraged in that process. So that's been something.
Are they friends from your faith community or colleagues?
Yeah, one is from faith community I was a part of for 30 years and is going to the same church I'm going to now, and another one is part of the new church community that I'm participating in. And I'm not as committed to this new one as I was to the other one. But anyway, yeah, like just having those kinds of relationships are just important for me anyway. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I've done.
Yeah, that's good. That was helpful.
Yeah.
Learned some stuff about you.
Yeah, well, me too, guys. I mean, I feel like I'm always learning stuff through this podcast, so it's a real blessing.
It's such a blessing.
All right, well, if this is what, you've done to care for yourself, what do you think it is that gets in the way of, some of these practices?
I'll go first. Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, I guess I would say time, right? Or I guess, better put, lack of it. What's kept me from, from self-care over time, things like work commitments, family commitments, sometimes just living life and prioritizing other things, at times has kept me from it. But the big thing for me is, I'd also say injury or health issues have kept me from it. I got to a point around 3 years ago where I honestly I couldn't bend my left leg outward. I had a lot of pain in my hip, and that led to me discovering that I had early onset arthritis. And so I ended up with a total hip replacement on my left side. And that's when I just really realized how important health is and how important it is to really continually make sure, Heather, as you said, that we're not only eating well, healthfully, exercising, but also taking advantage of annual physicals. I think prior to going to the doctor to see what was wrong with my hip, I hadn't been to the doctor in 7 years because I prided myself on always being, quote, healthy.
Right.
And so when I had a health issue, which got in the way of my self-care, meaning my exercise, and my exercise being something that always sort of just made me feel good about myself, made
So it was your
me,
outlet. I mean,
it was my outlet for
it's a
sure.
real emotional and physical outlet.
Definitely an outlet, a huge
Stress
distressor,
reliever.
something that I
100%.
felt I was just like really doing for myself. When that kind of came off the table, it was really disconcerting. I struggled with that. So, and so, I would say time, health issues, and just really managing life as life comes, has gotten in the way of it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I mean, Hope, those were awesome comments, and I don't really have much to add other than I would say sometimes I think feeling guilty can get in the way
Yeah, I've done that too, Heath.
prioritizing yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because
Can you say more about that, Heath?
well, I just think that it's the guilt you feel taking time for yourself when you're basically putting others' needs ahead of your own, right?
And Heather, I
And not
think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think for you
yeah.
and for me, maybe less so for Heidi, just being like for so many years working out of the home. When you come home, if you haven't had a chance to exercise, when you come home and I know for me, not being around my kids during the day, like the last thing I wanted to do was go exercise. I felt like I can't do this you
Yeah.
know, because how could I do this when I have not been here today? Is that the guilt that
Right.
you're kind of talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, it's, being out of the house all day long, every day, and then you come home and it's also, you come home and, it's dinner time, it's homework time,
Right.
it's, reading time, it's whatever time, but it's not time for mom because mom does a lot of the heavy lifting
Those things,
as it
yeah.
Right.
relates to, going back to what we've said in previous
Mhm.
podcasts, right? Mom takes care of the family oftentimes. And so, it was always that, feeling like I had been away all day and I'm not going to go take, another 45 minutes to an hour to go, do a Peloton class or go for a run or a walk or something like that. So I definitely think that, and I'm sure many of our listeners can relate to this, right?
Yeah.
It's the whole,
Yeah.
it's the whole notion of the work-life balance, and how much you can
And how it
incorporate
impacts
self-care.
self-care. Yeah.
Yeah, and how
Exactly.
you can incorporate it into self-care. And I think, Hope, just one of your points too is, time and or health issues impacting, self-care, and you use the example of exercise and stuff. And it goes
Mhm.
back to, I do think as you get older, it really is hard to understand, like empathize with folks when they have health issues. But when you come into a health issue yourself, you're put like right in the forefront of the issue, right? And I just
Yeah,
think
not
that
face.
it's so important to keep ourselves healthy
Yeah.
because we take health for granted. I think by and large when we're healthy.
When we do a podcast on health issues, I think we'll go, more in depth in that, because when your health is faltering in any way, it impacts so many other aspects of your life. So yeah,
Yeah.
it has a direct impact on self-care.
100%.
For sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Hyde?
Yeah, well, those are all, really important comments that you made. I just think, another thing that can get in the way are other habits that run counter to the healthy ones that we try to create. Like, for me, I could be exhausted at the end of the day, right? When I get home from work. And I'll typically always find some way to move my body, whether it's I use my Peloton in the morning or I use it when I get home from work and or go for a walk. But let's say, one night I come home and I'm tired. I could
Heidi, I
use
don't
that.
mean to interrupt, but Hope, I'm happy to see you're drinking your water.
Oh, thank you, Heather. It's very
Hold on.
important for
Hold on,
self-care.
Hez. Here we go.
Heather, I just finished
Are you
one
proud of me
glass
for
and
drinking my
I've
water
got mine
too?
too.
I'm pouring another.
Yeah.
You'll be happy to see I have another glass.
Good job, ladies.
Yeah.
Because you can't pour
I didn't
from
mean
an
to interrupt, Hyde.
you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Mhm.
You cannot pour from an empty
Exactly.
cup.
That's right. Nice.
Exactly.
Love
Key
that you
message
brought
for
that
today.
right back to
Key
Yep.
message for
our
today.
podcast. Yeah. So anyway,
Got to keep it full.
you know, I can feel really tired at the end of the day. And let's say I like use the bike when I get home. And I could use more time to go for a long walk, but instead I might just make dinner, sit down, watch a show on Netflix and have a glass of wine or two, which is something for sure I have participated in. And it's like,
I
you're
will
eating,
join you in that.
yeah, it's like you eat a healthy diet, right? And then you have 2 glasses of wine. It's like I'm getting
It's
sugar
counter.
and
Yeah.
alcohol, right, from some
Yep.
source.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my whole goal in saying that is just like, I think sometimes those habits that, run counter to the good ones can sort of be self-defeating in a sense. But the big message is everything in moderation. I think that is really the key to
I agree
Yeah.
with that.
I
all of it.
totally agree. And I also think sitting down and watching a Netflix movie, it's it's certainly a way to relax too. And that might be one way someone defines self-care.
Yeah, I think it's always about, whether or not you're sitting down and watching like 5 episodes of a show, right?
Absolutely.
Which is more like, I mean, culturally, it's very normative. I mean, people binge watch Netflix. I mean, it's in the vernacular these days, but
Yeah.
but how healthy is it, right?
Correct.
So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about that. Well, all right, guys, since we're talking about self-care, right?
Yes.
Did you know that there are 8 areas or dimensions of self-care that have been identified?
I did not know that. Hope?
I did not know that either, Heidi. I'll look forward to hearing what they are.
Well, I'm going to see if you guys can actually guess what those might be.
Oh
But
boy.
before I do, and hopefully, that piqued the listener's attention.
What could
Oh,
they
I'm
be?
sure.
LOL.
I'm sure they are sitting on the edge of their seats, Heidi.
And this is not a
Yeah.
multiple choice question.
No, and there's no prize
not a
associated with
it's not a
guessing
trick
these things
question
either.
There's no prize.
There's
Go
no
back to our
prize.
first episode, Pride versus Pride.
I was gonna say.
If you get it, I'll say congratulations. That was awesome.
Excellent.
But anyway, all right. So the 8 areas of self-care that have been identified were identified by a woman named Dr. Peggy Swarbrick. She developed a model of wellness that was actually born out of research on, people's lived experiences facing traumatic life experiences,
That's interesting.
substance
Yeah.
use and mental health challenges, sort of like who's at risk for developing some of these things, right?
Mhm.
And again, it's all about a model of wellness. So I mentioned there's no prize, there's just pride. So what do you think those 8 areas of self-care could be?
Okay, so you said 8, right?
8.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Head, let's give this a shot.
Let's
So
get our fingers
one,
going.
One of them has to be physical.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Definitely.
Physical. I would say mental health. So
100%.
Is
Yep.
okay.
It's kind of like emotional, mental
Okay.
area.
But does that count as physical? Does that count as one?
No, 2.
It's 2.
Okay,
Okay.
so physical,
And then
emotional,
mental. Mhm.
Yeah.
Spiritual?
Yes, totally.
What about like relationships or like
Yep.
social?
Social, relational.
That's 4.
Yep.
Okay. Intellectual, I'm saying.
Yeah, like intellectual curiosity,
Is that by
intellectual
itself
for
or
sure.
does that fall
That's
into
5.
it's by itself?
Uh-huh.
Um
Yep. You guys are doing good. You almost got
Okay,
them.
so physical, mental,
Hope, did you say spiritual?
spiritual,
you did.
intellectual. We said emotion. No, we said social.
You said
we said
physical,
social.
emotional, mental, social or relational, spiritual, and intellectual.
Oh, how about like work life, professional?
Yes, that is another area. You got it.
Yeah, I wasn't
Occupational,
thinking-
professional.
I wasn't thinking that.
So how
wasn't
many do we
thinking that.
have?
You've got 6 so far.
6. And you said there are 8.
And I guess like external, like self-care, like I guess that's physical. Like I was thinking like skincare routines, hair, all
Physical
that stuff.
stuff.
That's physical.
Physical.
Sleep, diet, nutrition
Um,
stuff.
All right.
And it's
so we've
okay if
got
you can't guess
physical,
all of them.
mental.
But you're doing a great job.
Everything
Well-
I'm thinking is falling into those buckets. I must be missing.
I was going to say,
got 6 so far.
since I am a finance major, would finances fit into these categories?
They actually do, which is interesting. I didn't think that you would have gotten that because that's not an area that people really tend to consider when they're talking about self-care, but
Yeah,
way to
financial
go.
health.
You've got
Okay.
pride, Heather. You've got pride.
You got
I've
some
got
pride.
pride.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of pride.
I don't
That's
know,
a big
Heidi.
one.
I'm gonna let you tell us
Yeah, I
the
don't.
last one.
I'm tapped out as well.
Everything I'm thinking for self-care is falling into, I think, the other buckets that I've already mentioned as has
or
Heather. Yeah.
taking a stab
Here,
at.
ready, Heidi? Drop the mic.
Drop the mic or pass the buck back. Pass it
Pass
back
the
to
mic.
me.
Pass the baton.
Yeah, no, you got all
Pass
of
the
them
baton.
almost. I mean, the only one that you didn't get was environmental.
So can you just repeat them for me?
Yeah. So it's the physical,
Yeah.
it's the emotional and mental,
Okay.
That makes sense.
it's the social or relational, like relationships,
Mhm.
Yep.
it's intellectual,
Okay.
it's professional or occupational,
Yeah, I wouldn't have, that's the one Heather got. I wouldn't have gotten that. That was good, Heather.
it's environmental, which we'll talk about,
Okay.
it's
We didn't
spiritual,
get that one. Okay.
Yeah,
That's the one you said.
yeah. I'm not
Spiritual
sure.
and
and then financial.
okay.
The one Heather pulled out of her
Pulled
hat.
it out of my hat.
Out of her finance hat.
The
Out of her-
rabbit out of the hat.
Out of her finance hat.
Out of her finance hat.
I'm not a
Everyone,
magician,
all the
am I?
listeners know she's surviving Wall Street. So
Surviving Wall Street.
and she has comments to
post-COVID,
make
especially.
about
I'm surviving Wall Street post-COVID.
work environments. Yes, that's going to be a joke we come back to often here. Okay, well, so what I'm going to do,
That's so interesting.
guys, in sort of just talking a little bit more about these 8 dimensions or areas of self-care is I'm going to kind of, just say them again and sort of define them. And then maybe what you guys could do is try to put some context around what that might look like.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I like that too.
Okay. So the first one we're going to start with is the physical, right?
Okay.
The physical area. So again, that's just recognizing the need for physical activity, for a good, healthy diet, for sleep, which is really important. The body and mind need rest, and for nutrition, right? Which falls into diet. So that's physical. Now, Hope.
Yeah.
What
I
do
mean,
you
I'll
think?
give you some thoughts on what might fall under physical. So
good. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
I bet
And
you
you've
two
already
are on
said
the
some
edge of
earlier,
your
so-
seat.
Yes, we are.
I know.
Waiting with bated
I know
breath.
exactly.
And our listeners are too, I know.
I know. I'm positively sure.
And hopefully they got some pride guessing the domains as well.
Yeah. All right. So I'm thinking things like, the obvious, regular exercise, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
So whether you're walking, running, swimming, biking, playing tennis, what seems to be popular these days, pickleball, anything where you're moving your body.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I would say yoga as well, just because I do yoga pretty consistently.
Yeah. I think it's one of the best things you can do for your body.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So taking care of the body with good nutrition. So eating well, making sure that you're stocking your fridge with fruits and veggies, things, I would say foods that have high water content. So things like the fruits and the veggies.
And shout out to Heather, water content. It's important.
Water content. Yeah.
Drink your water.
And
Drink your water,
drinking
people.
water. Sleeping well, like making sure you're getting a good night's sleep. I know folks have fitful sleep, and the importance of sleep on the body is so critical.
Yeah.
It impacts your cognition if you're not sleeping well. So I would say, things like that. And, physical touch, being intimate with your partner is an example of that.
Important
and trying to relax as well. So things like, I would say a massage, taking a nice bath, taking a walk on a beach, things like that. Hopefully that's a pretty good list.
It's a great list.
It's a great list.
I mean,
off the cuff, Head.
That's pretty amazing.
Off the cuff.
Head, do you want to try off the cuff? You got anything to add
How
to the physical
about
domain?
getting a facial? How's that one? I added that one. There you go.
Love that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's good. Acupuncture, chiropractic, all those kinds of stuff. They're good.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to talk about the emotional mental. Okay. So that just means coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. So really putting context around it is like the ability to recognize our emotion, to figure out what the emotion is pointing to in terms of like a need that we have, that we have to figure out how to get met. Because often emotions and needs go hand in hand. Like if I'm sad and I am trying to figure out why that's true, I will try to pick up information in my environment and I will say, oh, I'm sad because something that Todd just said hurt my feelings. So then what do I need to do about it to go, not feel so sad anymore? And
talk to Todd and tell him that he said something that hurt your feelings.
Yes.
Communication,
yes.
good communication.
So hopefully that is a good example of navigating my emotion, and then like managing stress effectively, and trying to develop some compassion for myself and some others. I think that so often a lot of us are like recovering perfectionists, and it's easier to be critical toward self instead of offering a lot of compassion to self. So, so that's just putting context around it, saying kind, nice things to yourself.
That's helpful. Saying,
be
I am
aware.
awesome. I am great. I am worthy.
I am so proud
like
of me.
That.
Yeah. Well,
I can do this. I've got this.
I've got this. I am loved.
Just do it.
I
am good enough as I am.
Important.
Yes.
I am significant. I matter. Things
I
like
am,
that.
I can, I will, I do.
Yes.
That's a shout out to Christine.
Christine. Yes. On Peloton for those of you who
That's right.
aren't in the Peloton community.
Yes.
Peloton, if you want to sponsor us. I don't want to say a mean, bad joke like you might go bankrupt, so that might not work, but it's okay. Be aware of our own boundaries. Do things like, try to get out what's in with the emotional, mental, like try to process what's going on, outside us and within us, because that's often where the challenging sort of emotions, right, get generated. So do things like a gratitude journal. Just keep track of things that you're thankful and grateful for and kind of challenge yourself. Don't keep saying I'm grateful for my partner, I'm grateful for my kids over and over again. Try to find one new thing or 5 new things daily to be thankful for.
I know a lot of people who do that love that. I haven't done that.
Yeah, I actually did it several years ago and then tried to do it again, where it was a challenge of like writing 1,000 things that I was grateful for. Comes from this book by Anne Voskamp called 1,000 Gifts. And it's just all about the 1,000 gifts she's talking about are the items that she
is grateful for.
Journaling was grateful and thankful for. But it's really hard to do that. You got to really be intentional
think about
in it.
Yeah.
I think you have to be intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. But, other than that, just have good boundaries, take time to reflect on the feelings. Like I said, have an outlet to discuss those things, whether it's, close friends, whether it's therapy, whether it's like professional consultation, whatever it is, to try to keep yourself emotionally, mentally healthy. And things obviously too, like practice meditation, prayer, mindfulness, journaling, stuff like I already said. Okay. All right, Heath, I'm going to have you sort of give some, idea as to sort of what the social relational area looks like. So it's defined as developing a sense of connection and belonging that involves having a supportive social network. And of course, that would include the professional network as well. So what do you think, if you gave context to that, what that would look like in terms of someone trying to focus on doing good self-care in this area?
Yeah, I mean, that's I think pretty self-explanatory, Hyde. It's basically having, caring and supportive relationships, personally and professionally. And I think it's really about making time to develop or to establish and develop relationships with friends, family, asking people for help when you need it. Again, we've talked in previous podcasts about the fact that, I live where, a lot of my family and a lot of Matt's family lives. So we're blessed to be able to ask for help when we need it. It's about creating those support networks that help get us through. It can also be about belonging to or joining, a gym. It can be about, joining a church, different communities, outside of work, right? Volunteer organizations. You guys just talked about the importance of yoga in your lives, joining yoga studios, joining running groups, etc. There's a whole long list of ways
Doing
that we
things
can
that create that social connection.
Exactly. It's really about creating social connection. And it's also it's about establishing, it's about developing and really importantly about maintaining those relationships. Because as I previously stated, I've not been great about maintaining relationships. Due to work-life balance. So these are all things I'm going to be focusing on in my third act.
Well, that's great. And also
Yay
just
for the
kind
third
of
act.
note that there's a lot of overlap here
Third
too,
act.
right? Like moving your body, like yoga studio or running
Of
group
course,
or
the
whatever,
overlap.
right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's
It's
interesting.
like
It seems like a
two
lot of
birds with
these
one
overlap,
stone, right? Yeah, they actually all do, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But
Okay.
okay, Hope. What about thanks for that, for giving context. The intellectual, right? So, like, if I define it as just recognizing creative abilities and finding ways to expand your knowledge and your skills, what do you think that looks like? Can you put some form to
Yeah,
that domain?
I would really just define it myself as putting myself out there to learn and grow as a
That's great.
person.
Mhm.
So I would say, reading a good book, listening to enjoyable music, doing crossword puzzles, learning a new language, taking a course on something that's totally out of my comfort zone. Anything that challenges an individual to learn and grow and expand their repertoire of knowledge is what I would say.
I like the repertoire word.
I
That was
was
good.
waiting. I was
Is Hope our
actually
dictionary
waiting.
again today?
I was
I thought
waiting
Heather
for
was.
the both
I
of
beat
you.
Heather to the punch.
Good
Okay.
I was
word,
waiting
Hope.
for the both of you to
Repertoire.
comment on my choice of that word. That is hilarious.
I love it. I love it.
Let me know if you need any others.
Okay, I
Hope
will.
is our human dictionary. Thank you, Hope.
Oh boy.
How
No
how
comment. No
appropriate
comment.
that you
No
took the
comment.
intellectual.
Heather and Heidi are giving me a hard time right now. Oh, that's exactly right. Heather, that's such a great point.
You're
Wow.
welcome. Yeah,
Yeah,
good. I'm glad.
you do like to end your day with reading a good book, so it's
I
appropriate.
do. I
Exactly.
really do.
Okay, well, I'm going into the
Intellectual
spiritual.
curiosity keeps us young.
I'm going into the spiritual. So that's of course expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life.
Mhm.
And so again, just putting, some context, like, of course, those beliefs and values that we espouse that are important to us and that guide us through life, is what I'm talking about. And so that can be praying, that can be a reflection journal, that can be meditation, contemplative prayer, going on a spiritual retreat, taking a walk in the woods or in nature and just noticing how incredible the creation is
Mhm.
around us, giving
Mhm.
back via service to other people, sitting in stillness, learning to be okay with silence and solitude so you can hear, from whatever you believe in, right? Whether it's God, whether it's a higher power, whether it's the universe, whether it's like Yahweh from Jewish tradition.
Mhm.
So, and also like mindfulness meditation is big practice for Buddhists and Hindus. And so just spiritual practices that reflect your beliefs about something larger than yourself really is the context that I'm giving to this domain or area. You guys have anything to add to that? I mean, Hope said yoga earlier. That was a
Yeah.
spiritual practice for her.
No, Heidi, I just want to say that I liked your use of the word contemplative.
Oh, thank you. I mean,
And that was off the cuff.
I'll pass the dictionary to Heidi today.
contemplative, and I'm competing with Hope to get the intellectual
Yes.
spot.
Yes.
So I hope I'm doing
I
a good
thought
job.
I was quite
Yes.
literal.
Let me know.
Yes. You are very literal.
You are very literal.
Very literal.
That's for sure. We all are, but I think you're
Until next time.
Comma.
Nobody really understands what that means, except the three of us. But we might give it away at the end of the
At
podcast.
some point,
Who
maybe.
knows? All right, Had, let's move into the professional occupational.
Okay.
And I'll just say it's personal satisfaction and enrichment that you derive from your work. So what would you say context looks like that? I know it's not really super appropriate for you because you don't like your work so much.
Well, I said, what happens if you don't actually have personal satisfaction from work?
I guess you look for a new job.
that or
Learn how to stay
you find,
well.
you
Right.
find other aspects of work that you like.
right. I mean, you find other aspects of work, and then for me, it also mean sharing my strengths, right? And that would
Yeah.
be sharing my strengths with others, by way of mentoring. It would also. Did I say something funny?
No, I was thinking about a prior comment. Sorry.
Did you want to share?
No.
Okay. So back to professional
I'm
and
trying to remember what the
occupational.
comment was, but I can't.
Back to
Just
professional and
ignore me.
occupational, ladies. That could also mean, honestly, taking time to get out of the office, once a day. It could be it could mean eating your lunch every day. It could be, negotiating your needs at work. It could mean setting boundaries professionally. It means a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
It could mean attending professional development trainings,
Yeah, I think that's
workshops,
good.
maybe getting your
Yeah.
company to pay for another degree or a
Mhm.
master's degree, etc.
If they offer that, yeah.
So that's what I would say. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to the professional.
No,
Since you're both
I would
professionals.
just say like attending, conferences
Since you're both professional.
when you can. I think the really good thing about professional occupational self-care is like that there's so many trainings offered online,
Yeah.
which make it so accessible for people.
It's
So
sort of never ending, right?
that's good.
It's
So,
actually
yeah, so
incredible
it's
how much
not just
of an
professional.
opportunity there is to learn online
Yeah,
for
and
free.
It's that overlap, right, between professional, occupational again, and like intellectual or
Yep.
Yep.
So, all right.
I mean, it is really interesting, Heidi, because as we give context to some of these categories, you really do see the overlap.
You do see
yeah,
the
you
overlap
definitely
for
do.
sure.
You do. Hope, did you want to add anything to what has said, or
No,
do you want
I think Heather covered.
Okay.
I think Heather did a great job.
Okay.
Way to go.
And
Way to
so,
go,
all right.
Heather.
Yeah.
As a professional woman, you don't have a comment about professional.
No,
I'm kidding.
I think you covered it all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It might be too off script for her, or
Could
no,
be.
I should have said it wasn't for you, but hope,
Two out the
environmental.
box. Two out the
Yes.
box. So
Environmental. So good health. It's defined as good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that you support your well-being. So having said that, what do you think that might look like?
So I mean, I'm guessing that it really refers to keeping my own personal space organized. Would that be right?
Yeah. I think personal and professional space. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess I would just say, examples of that might be just to maintain a clean, safe living environment, clean home, a clean working environment. Heather, why are you laughing? You're cracking me up.
Are you going to say something about Hope's cleaning habits?
Not leaving. No, I have
Hope's house is very clean.
Yes.
Obsessive.
And organized.
A little bit obsessive. Putting things back.
That's probably changed over the years, maybe.
No,
I actually,
no, it hasn't.
No, I don't think so. I think it goes back to the three of us sharing a room with Faith. We had a tiny room and bunk beds. So there were four of us in a very small room. And
with
I just
two closets
remember
split each.
with two closets that had a lot of stuff in them. But I just remember like my space in the room was perfectly organized. It was like the only, and I would get mad if anybody put stuff in my space because it was the only space that I had. So
yes, it was your space. It's personal.
Jim laughs at me because he's like, I think you just channel that little spot in your room that was organized. I think you're just channeling that through life because most of the rooms in my house are pretty well organized. I'm not a big clutter person. So, keeping an environment, I would say clean and safe just really means decluttering, not letting things stack up on tables, putting things away, recycling things, not letting things, go to waste and stuff. Yeah. I mean, when I think about environment, I just think making sure that everything's kind of manageable and organized. I don't know if either of you would add to that.
Yeah, I just would say, environmentally too, like monitor time with technology, because that can be something that could take up a lot of space in the space you're trying to create that, supports your well-being. Um,
See, that's funny. I would think that that would be in the emotional slash
Like
like
physical, emotional health.
emotional health, like mental health type category. But again, we talked about,
yeah,
a
just
lot
the
of
overlap
crossover.
of it.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's interesting.
And maybe, if you're working more remote post COVID, have try to create some space like outside too for you to enjoy during the day. Like if you're eating lunch, that creates just sort of like a safe, quiet, Zen-like spot to sit in for a while. That could also help with self-care stuff, having that kind
Yeah.
of environment. So,
Great suggestion.
Excellent suggestion.
all
Hi.
right, Heath, since you got financial
Oh
area,
boy.
since you're still
Finance cap is
holding on
coming
to
off again.
to pride again, not no prize. Financials like financial area of self-care is defined as satisfaction with current and future financial situations.
Yeah.
So that seems pretty straightforward, but what do you think in terms of giving context to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly straightforward, but again, it's just being responsible with your finances, budget, right?
Yeah,
You got to know what's coming in and you got to know what's going out, right?
yeah, it's really important.
Because that's when you can get in trouble, right? And,
And I
certainly as
think
it
a lot of
relates
people
to
do. Yeah.
a lot of people do, right? They struggle and, how many times I've had many conversations with, my daughter even about buying things on a credit card versus using her debit card to buy something, right? Because a lot of people don't understand that, when you buy something on a credit card, you're paying, instead of paying $1, if you have an interest rate that's 20%, you're actually paying $1.20
Right.
for the item, right? And so, right, knowing what's coming in and knowing what's going out is obviously very important. Um, and I think having good, healthy financial conversations with your significant other and your children is extremely important. I think, really important to be up to date on insurance, right? Whether it's, car insurance, health insurance, whether you have Hyde, like for your business, what sort of insurance you need for your business, sort of professional
Yep,
insurance.
liability insurance.
Yep, liability insurance, and then sort of, knowing, I think for me, and engaging in your financial life, right? Because I think that a lot of people leave it to one person in the family system to focus on finances, and I think it's really important for everybody in the family to have a good sense of financial health. And I think one thing that I think is very important is investing for your retirement, right? And I would, tell all of our listeners to, as best they can, try to maximize their 401ks,
Especially
so that they,
young people.
yeah, especially young kids,
Maximize as
because,
much in your 401k as possible.
try to put away as much as you possibly can now, because you have something called the power of compounding, right? Your money compounds over times. So you want to save as much as you possibly can. So to the point of our podcast is about self-care. You want to enjoy self-care in your retirement, and you can do that by saving as much as you can.
Yep.
Which is
So be fiscally, financially responsible.
great. It's reminding me of our conversation we had about our background in economics and the need to define economics via Investopedia.
Yeah, exactly.
But wow, I just learned a
And
lot, Heath.
Investopedia is not a sponsor too, we've said,
Yeah.
but they could be.
You put some meat around that specific self-care area. So thank you for that, both of you guys. I think, again, as I listen, it's kind of fascinating that all these dimensions do really work together. They overlap and impact and
Yeah.
affect either in a positive or negative way, each domain. So I just don't know if you have anything else to add before we get ready to end the podcast. Is there anything either of you are just dying to say about self-care today after
No, I
having just
mean,
talked about it?
I think um, I've been enlightened as a result of, understanding the 8 different groupings for self-care.
Yeah, really interesting.
Very interesting. I learned a lot. But I do think that self-care, I've said it a couple of times now, self-care is important through life, but I think it's particularly important as we age, because you see the impact of self-care, and how it sort of helps you move through life, right? Like physical. I mean, it's so important to keep your body moving. It's so important to keep your mind active.
Incredibly
So
important to keep your mind
yeah.
active.
So again, like I said, give me an S, give me an E, give me an L, give me an F, give me
Well,
a
I think all of this
CARE.
stuff,
Self-care.
again, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Hope, but I think all of this stuff is
No,
so
I was
incredibly
good.
important as we age, right? Because to your point, our bodies physically change, right? And, we might be more prone to anxiety or depression, et cetera. And, staying intellectually stimulated and moving your body, is so key. And, Heidi started the podcast with the good old metaphor. You can't pour from an empty cup, but you must fill your own cup first.
It's true. Yeah.
That is how I would like to end my comments on today's podcast.
Yeah, well, I think those comments were helpful and good, you guys, and just hope that this podcast has helped our listeners understand what self-care is and isn't, and just hope that it can give our listeners some pause to reflect on how well a job they feel like they're doing to care for themselves across those 8 areas. Our goal, of course, is to help people realize how important it is to use our time and energy in a way that enhances our well-being. Because again, if we're focused on using our time and energy to enhance everyone else's, then we're going to end up in a place called exhaustion and burnout. And that's a place that none of us wants to find ourselves sitting in the middle of.
Yeah, not being physically present for the people that we love in life.
Yeah. Yep. And, there's irony in it, right? Because we feel so present meeting the needs, but because we're exhausted and burnt out, on the other side, on the flip side of things, we're not able to really be as present as we want to be. So, but anyway, again, just remember you can't pour from an empty cup, like Heather just said, but you have to first fill your own, and really hope that you do in order to have anything available to actually pour. So,
Well said, Heidi.
Until next time, Heath, what do you got for us?
Heidi, I can't believe you didn't say until next time, comma. However,
do you want to say why?
Well, I tend to be quite literal.
Yes.
And let's just say that you had provided us with some information where it said until next time, comma. And I happened to make a comment when we were reviewing what you said. And I said, Heidi, could you go to the section that says until next time, comma?
And
So now everybody
after
knows.
it.
Which just
until next
means to our
time,
listeners. That's
comma.
when until next time, comma means
It cues
Heather.
the ending. Yes.
It cues the ending.
It cues our ending, which is.
But Heather needed to know exactly.
I need
what
to
it
know
meant.
exactly what I need to do and when I need to do it, and when I am being called upon to do it. So, since you cued until next time, comma, I'm going to say thanks again to our listening community for joining us today. Remember that you can find us at Finding Our Way Through on all the podcast platforms. That's Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Please hit subscribe and follow us and like us and help spread the word about the community that we are trying to build. Now, we hope that after listening to today's podcast, that you know that you are not alone in your effort to take care of yourself. This is Heather.
This is Heidi.
This is Hope.
And until next week, comma, remember, you've got this.
You've got this.
You've got this.